Good morning, everybody. I am reading in the Old Testament right now. I love reading the Old Testament because there's so much history there. And I love not only reading about what was going on at the time, but how the people interacted with each other and what they did, what a father did with a son and the mother with the daughter and the handmaidens and all the things. I'm so interested in all the stories there. And they show so much just human nature. And I love it. And I'm reading right now in 1 Samuel around chapter 20, 21, 22. And it's the story of when David was on the run from Saul. And he was Saul was trying to kill him. We don't really know why, except for jealousy. There was a lot of jealousy going on there. The women of the town had been singing the praises of David. They were saying Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his 10,000s. And Saul did not like it. He wanted David out of the way. And where I'm reading right now is where David went to one of the towns, and he and his men were hungry, and he went to the priest, and the priest said, the only bread we have here is the showbread. And he said, give me that. We're going to partake of that. And then he asked the priest about were there any swords there that he had left in a hurry and didn't even bring any swords or any fighting gear with him. And the priest said, the only thing I have here is the sword of Goliath, which David had taken as a spoil of the battle that he was in with Goliath. So he said, okay, let me have that. That's the best. There's none better around than this particular sword. So he took the sword, and he and his men went on a little bit further. They came to another town, and when they came in, the king there, he was inquiring, what are these men doing here? Why are they here? And they said, this is David. David is, and the king was like, what is he doing here? Well, when David found out that the king knew he was in town, David became afraid. And it kind of got me to thinking, really? Whenever you you have defeated the lion and the bear and Goliath, and you have won in many other battles, and here you have the sword of Goliath, and he comes into enemy territory, and these are enemies against the children of Israel. He comes into the enemy's territory, and he becomes afraid, and he starts thinking, uh-oh, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen going on? What is this king going to think about me? So he starts pretending, he becomes quite the actor, and he starts pretending that he's crazy, that he's gone mad, that he's slobbering down into his beard, and he's touching onto the doors like he's blind, and he doesn't know what's going on. And the people, the men there, bring him to the king, and the king is looking at him like, what in the world? Why did y'all bring this crazy man? What do I have to do with him? Get him out of here. And it got me to thinking again about the people and how people are just people. I don't care who you are, how many battles you've won, where you are in your life. If you're married to the king's daughter, it doesn't matter. People are still people. And David, what happened to David was he became afraid. He came into the enemy's territory, and he got afraid of what they were going to do to him, what man could do to him. And it made me start thinking, what happens to us? Many times we come into the enemy's territory, and we're coming into a work situation, we're coming into a family situation, we're coming into, maybe a disagreement with a store that you might even be coming into, and all of a sudden you come into this situation and you become afraid. You're coming into the enemy's territory, and you start thinking, I'm going to just start acting a little bit crazy, a little bit off. Or you might even, as I have at times in my past, start acting like them. How many times have you come into a situation and you start acting like the world? And you start acting like those that are around you? Sometimes it's hard to withstand, especially when you come into a family situation. You know, it's so easy to go back to the things that we know, the things that, what's familiar to us, what's comfortable, and what we know they're going to identify with, rather than being who God made us to be and standing in that affirmation and that confirmation of who God has made us to be, and that's like Christ. And every situation you come in contact with, I would say, especially when you get out in the world, it is not going to be like Christ. They're not going to act like Christ. They're not going to act like how we're supposed to act in that situation. And sometimes we want to become like them rather than affecting the situation for them to see who Christ is. And I heard a commentary on this little part of the scriptures, and the guy was saying, be the thermometer rather than be the thermostat rather than the thermometer. A thermostat sets the temperature. A thermostat sets the temperature and holds it there. A thermometer takes the temperature of the situation and tells you what that temperature is. Isn't that good? I love that. Rather than being the thermometer that it goes into a situation and takes the temperature and adjusts itself to the temperature of the situation, we need to be the thermostat, where we set the temperature and we're going to hold that temperature no matter what comes around, no matter how cold it gets, how hot it gets, whatever the situation is, we're going to hold the same temperature. I love that example that they gave. And that's what we're to be. We're to be the thermostat of any situation we come in contact with, and we make that situation become like Christ rather than being the temperature and taking the temperature and adjusting ourselves to what's going on around us. We're going to affect the situation. I love that. And I love the fact that David was human. He gave us a great example of what we do sometimes when we come into a situation that is not of God and is not a Christian situation. He became like them, but later on, oh my goodness, how David became the greatest example of all, how to humble ourselves and to put ourselves in his thermostat and become like him rather than us becoming like them. I love y'all. I'll talk to y'all next week.